Okay, it's Thursday, January 20th, after the market's closed. And what I wanted to do is just shoot a quick video on AMD stock and kind of show you not only what's developing, but just how to really view these multiple time frames with the strat and how it creates just some very high probability opportunities. And if you look at any stock this way, this is how it all comes together. Hopefully it'll be clear. We know it's down to 120 now, so everyone's thinking AMD is really maybe at a good price to buy. I could show you why I think it's at least going to 118.25 before it even starts to turn up, and who knows if it can go much lower from there. It's not a terrible chart yet on the long time frame like the yearly chart. I just pointed out on Netflix after the big drop after hours today how that one's a very poor development on the yearly chart. We could be heading down for the next 11 months as I'm concerned. AMD's not at that point, but I'll show you where it is at and what's developing and why there were a couple of very good opportunities and why, I think it's pretty clear we're going to be heading down here first. But anyway, let's just go over it relatively quickly. So this is now the monthly chart on AMD. And what I'm showing here is this month now is the first month we're getting a down bar, in a while that we're getting a down bar heading lower below the low of the previous month. That was an inside bar. So when you break below that low, you're projecting down to the bottom of this bar right here. And that's where we're heading right now. But let's see what happened along the way, because you're following AMD. Let's say you like it long and you're tracking it through here, and this month starts to pause. Well, let's look at the weekly chart at that point as the pause is happening. So here you get some down weekly red. I'm not saying you got to exit all your long-term positions at that point, but certainly you need that to turn up again before you're going to really start higher. And in this case, it started to do that, but look what happened. And this is where I want to judge the last like 4 weeks. So you get that big red reversal week in here, okay? And you can see that. It's just clear that's happening. And at that point, you're really projecting that the next week is at least going to, unless you just start above the midpoint and go higher, you're probably going to test lower. That's going to be a 2-down week. Then once you see the 2-down week, which I'll get to in a minute on the daily chart, once that develops, you project, that's the key to this whole thing that I'm getting at, to this low first. Then if that low breaks, then to this low. And if that low breaks, then we got to push all the way down here to where we're going now, 118.25. And let me show you how that kind of unfolded. But right here at this point, when it's making the weekly reversal back to the monthly chart, that's this red line. You don't really know at that moment it's going to be a monthly red bar, inside bar with a break lower, but it's kind of getting there because you're nearing the end of the month. This is one of the last weeks in the month. So anyway, let's show you what happens here. So you get that weekly reversal. Now let me go to the daily chart. Okay, so that's right in here. I drew the red line. This is where you're getting that reversal look. So what are you doing? You're now really looking to go short unless that whole weekly bar, let me look at it again, begins to, completely reverse and head higher, maybe going above the midpoint of that bar. So what happens is on the daily chart, that next week, you get the first day up, but then this is the key sell day right here. You get that, you start up on that day, but then you go to the 50%, below the previous bar. So that's a 50% rule, looking for a 3-day, and you get that reversal day. And that's kind of exactly what you were anticipating coming in. Now the thing is, once you break, now here, keep this in mind. These blue lines are those weekly targets I was talking about. So once you break through, on this day here, which was the sell day on a Tuesday, once that breaks through and gives you the new weekly 2 down, you are then projecting to these 2, lines. So if you go to the daily chart, you're in short here, you really are projecting these 2 lines to be taken out, and it goes the first 2 days later, it hits the first line, and then it hits the second line, the next day or 2 later. So this trade right here is very clear that you're heading to those targets. Now, here's the thing. You broke this target, and the question is, are you going to go all the way to the next weekly target? Remember, you're on the weekly chart here. So once we broke these 2 lines, the question is, are you going to this line? And the only way you're not going to get there is if this weekly chart right here, which is a big red bar, kind of reverses to the upside. And, again, you're looking kind of at the midway point of that bar because, you start out a little below that week to start, and then you're coming up for a couple of days. But as long as you hold above the 50% of that bar, the odds are you're going to turn down. And if you can't reverse this bar, then you're heading down to this new weekly target. So what happened here on this week? Again, like I said, you start up on I'd have to look at Monday, Tuesday. These days here are the critical days. Are you going to reverse this whole week or not? And as it turns out, again, you get another 3 bar right here to head lower. And this was another sell day. and with a very tight stop, because you know at that if you can start heading up, then you're going to take out this previous week's low, red action. But anyway, you head down, and at that point, you feel pretty good that not only are you going to attack the daily targets coming up, which is this low and this low, but on the weekly chart, you knew that this was the next move down. So what I'm trying to say is using that daily reversal right here, kind of looking at the immediate daily targets, you also knew that this aligned with that whole weekly target here, where you were projecting, if you couldn't turn, once you hit these first two weekly targets, once you couldn't turn up from there, then you look for the next weekly target. And the same thing's going to happen here. We're probably going to hit this weekly target of 118.25, and then we're going to determine, do we go, until anything changes, we're going to look for that next weekly target, which I wrote down here, 112.23, which is the low of this bar. So again, if we hit this, we want to see if we get some kind of weekly reversal. If not, and a daily reversal takes place, then we begin to think this next bar, this next weekly target takes place. And then eventually, this is going to, then at that point, you keep an eye on the monthly targets as the weekly targets are taken out. And you put it all together. Now, the final thing I just wanted to show on this video, because I'm going too long probably, is on the yearly chart compared to Netflix. All we're doing here is this is just an inside. This is January. We're starting an inside year from last year. So all this down action is still just inside of here. You see a green year. You kind of expect it to eventually push up again at some point. It could turn into a 2-down year, but that's going to take a long time to break the low of this previous year. So we're still in good shape here in the longer term, but there's definitely damage taking place in the short term, and that's the way you play the game. So I hope that makes some sense, how you look at this. But the main thing is you just got to really look at these weekly charts and their targets, and then you got to, grasp that if when you take out a target, you're probably heading to the next target unless something changes on that chart to say you fell short and you just broadened out a little bit on this time, and then you're going to start up again. So wanted to keep, just show you that. But AMD, like I said, you might think it's a good buy here at 121 or whatever it is. We're at 120.09 after hours. I'm saying no. I mean, I think it's definitely heading to this target because that's what everything has told us based on the way price is developing here in the target. And if, quite frankly, if we don't really turn there, then we're going down to 112. So you got to really be patient if you're looking to buy. And for now, I think the odds are, that you're certainly heading down there as well. But we'll see what happens. And, maybe I'll do another video on Netflix to show you it's a very different looking scenario there.